Aerobic energy system. Glossary. The word aerobic itself has been the hallmark of the fitness revolution, which began in the late 1960s with the launch of Ken Cooper's legendary book Aerobics. Following right behind him were the other icons that drove the principle of aerobic fitness to the forefront. Women should take most of the credit for turning the theory of aerobics into practice, what we all know now as the aerobic class. Starting with Jackie Sorensen, aerobic dance guru, dance exercise leaders have taught classes in their homes, schools, companies, cafeterias, and of course, health clubs. Credit should go to Judy Shepard-Missett, who created Jazzercise. Training Peaks Glossary. Aerobic energy system, meaning with oxygen, is used for the long-term, steady-paced exercise and day-to-day activities. Aerobic metabolism means with oxygen and occurs when energy is produced in the body from chemical reactions that use oxygen. The aerobic system produces the largest amounts of energy, although at the lowest intensity. For example, in a long-distance running. This energy production can be sustained for long periods of time as long as breathing can supply the lungs with enough oxygen. Glucose plus oxygen equals carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Effects of aerobic training for athletes. 1. Increases the number of mitochondria, small structures known as the powerhouses, inside muscle cells that produce energy from oxygen. 2. Increases the muscle's ability to use fat as fuel, increases lung capacity. 3. Improves heart stroke volume, increases lean body mass. Training zones. The aerobic zone is the fitness area at the heart of the wellness continuum. It is the transition zone between the two health zones and the two performance zones. It's also the first of the zones where performance training effects begin. In the aerobic zone, you begin to realize the changes that lead to athletic conditioning versus basic health and fitness. This is the zone where tremendous but somewhat technical physiological changes occur. As indicated below, the cardiopulmonary changes from the rest to the aerobic level are enormous. The changes are incredible. It's comfort zone. Don't forget, it's also comfortable. The aerobic zone is where you break sweat, raising your core temperature to just above the sweat point, but not much beyond. You feel like you've had a workout when you train here, but you don't feel any of the burn or the pain. If you do, you have pushed yourself through the aerobic ceiling and into the threshold zone, which isn't the place to be if your goal is to achieve fitness. It feels great to take a shower after an aerobic zone workout, because you can feel that you have released both emotionally and physically some of your stored up toxins. The aerobic zone is really the comfortable center to your performance training program. Training in the zones below the aerobic zone provides little measurable effect on performance, but may add to your training stresses. Training above the aerobic zone causes excessive dependence on glycogen and not fatty acid metabolization. For athletes, the aerobic zone provides enough of a stimulus to improve joint and tendon strength, but without excessive stress impact. It is a zone that teaches the metabolic pathways to spare carbohydrates and metabolize fatty acids. Exercising in Zone 3 leads to other cardiac and pulmonary changes, but typically does not result in overtraining. Remember though, that the benefits of zones are not cumulative. You have to train in a specific zone to get its specific benefit. If you are a Zone 3 junkie, but you really need to maximize your fat loss, you're going to have to slow down sometimes to do fat-burning zones 1 and 2 workouts. Aerobic training. Intensity, how hard, duration, how long, and frequency, how often, are key ways to improve your ability to maintain aerobic activity. On a cellular level, the energy our bodies run on exists as a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, ATP, says Javier Desley, exercise psychologist and elite coach for RST Sport. and we only have about 100 grams of ATP in the body, which only lasts for around 2 seconds. How aerobic system builds ATP. The aerobic system consists of 3 processes or stages, each of which produces ATP. These stages involve more complex chemical reactions than the other energy systems, which is why ATP production is much slower. The more complex the process, the longer it takes to produce ATP. The 3 stages, which will be discussed in greater details, are aerobic glycolysis. Slow glycolysis equals 2 ATP. Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle, equals 2 ATP. Electron transport chain, which equals 34 ATP. Training the aerobic energy system. Interval training. Interval training for the long-term aerobic energy system would have a work-rest ratio of 1:1 or 1:2. The work periods would usually exceed several minutes, and the rest periods would be active but at a lower intensity that could be sustained. Continuous training. Training that maintains a constant intensity and lasts for a prolonged period of time, usually longer than 15 minutes. Fartlek training, a type of interval training whereby the exerciser varies the speed and effort throughout the training session according to how they feel, ensuring that they can continue to exercise at all times, i.e., no rest intervals. Conclusions. From this we can see how the aerobic energy system capacity to generate ATP is virtually limitless. Where the anaerobic glycolytic system synthesizes only 2 ATPs from the breakdown of one glucose molecule, the aerobic system can synthesize 30 ATPs from one molecule, albeit very slowly in comparison. This also explains how our capacity for low-intensity endurance activities is so large. Aerobic energy system.